There is a subtle prison that many of us live in without realizing. The prison of constantly trying to please others. From childhood, we learn to seek approval, to adjust ourselves so that we are loved, accepted, or admired. Yet the more we bend, the further we drift from our true self. We smile when our heart is heavy. We agree when our inner voice whispers no. And we sacrifice our own peace for the fleeting comfort of someone else's satisfaction. In this silent struggle, we forget the simple art of being authentic. The freedom of not pleasing others is not about rejecting love, nor is it about becoming indifferent to the people around us. It is about discovering the quiet courage to live honestly, to embrace our truth without fear of judgment. When we let go of the endless need for validation, we begin to breathe more freely. We realize that true compassion is not built on pleasing, but on understanding. True kindness is not in denying ourselves, but in honoring both our heart and the hearts of others. Through Buddha's wisdom journey, this reflection becomes an invitation to pause, to look inward, and to see that freedom is not somewhere outside. It is within, waiting for us to stop performing and simply be. When we no longer live as actors on the stage of others' expectations, we finally taste the sweetness of authenticity and the quiet strength of inner peace. Opening the hidden prison. There are prisons built of steel and stone, with tall walls and heavy locks. But there is another kind of prison, one without bars, without guards, that silently traps millions of people. It is the prison of fear, the endless need to be accepted and approved by others. Many of us spend our whole lives trying to please parents, friends, colleagues, or even complete strangers we may never meet again. Every word we speak, every action we take, every decision we make is not guided by what we truly want, but by the constant calculation. What will they think of me? And day by day, we lose touch with our authentic self, chained to anxiety, comparison, and the dread of rejection. Ask yourself, how much of my life has been shaped by the fear of what others think? Have you ever turned down an opportunity because you worried you weren't good enough in their eyes? Have you ever hidden your real feelings just to avoid being laughed at? Have you ever forced a smile, agreed with something you didn't believe, simply to keep an image of being nice in someone else's mind? That is when you are already living inside a hidden prison. No one is holding you there. No chains bind your hands. Yet your mind is locked, confined within the walls of other people's expectations and judgments. The truth is, real freedom begins the moment you stop trying to please everyone. Because the reality is, you never can. You could sacrifice your whole life, give up your dreams, silence your own voice, and still, someone will criticize, reject, or dismiss you. People's opinions can change in a heartbeat, but you are the one who must live with yourself every single day. Here lies the paradox. We believe we'll be loved more if we make everyone happy, but in reality, we only become more invisible. We lose our uniqueness, and ironically, we end up being respected less. People cannot truly value you if you never dare to show who you really are. Think back to the rare moments when you chose to be authentic. Maybe you voiced a difficult truth. Maybe you took a path no one supported. Or maybe you simply said no to something you didn't want. In those moments, yes, there was fear. But beneath it, wasn't there also a quiet strength, a subtle joy, a weight lifted from your heart? That is the taste of inner freedom. If you keep living only to meet others' expectations, you will always be an actor in the play of your own life, a side character in the very story where you were meant to be the lead. You will never know what you truly love, what you truly dream of, or what deeply matters to you if you are always looking over your shoulder, asking, "But what will they think?" And the greatest tragedy is this: at the end of your life, you might realize you never truly lived. You only performed a role written by others. Breaking free from this hidden prison doesn't mean becoming selfish, careless, or reckless. It means something far more profound: giving yourself back the right to choose your own life. You can still love, share, and support others, but your actions will flow from freedom, not from fear of judgment. The world doesn't need another polished copy of someone else. What it needs is the real you, with your flaws and strengths, your light and shadows, your unique voice. And when you dare to live that truth, you not only free yourself, you also inspire others to step out of their invisible cages. So ask yourself a question that could change everything. What would I choose if I no longer feared what others think of me? The answer might not come all at once, but with each step, you'll see that the path of freedom has never been out there. It has always been within your own heart. Life is far too short to live as a shadow. It is time to step into the light, not the light that others shine on you, but the one that has always been glowing quietly inside. Why we crave approval. Deep within every human being lies a primal fear. The fear of being abandoned, of not belonging, of being rejected. As children, we depended entirely on our parents or caregivers for love and safety. A gentle smile, a word of praise, or a warm embrace signaled that we were safe and worthy. In contrast, scolding, neglect, or harsh comparison left us unsettled, anxious, and eager to adjust our behavior in order to win back acceptance. As we grow older, this mechanism doesn't disappear. It only becomes more subtle. We work hard not just to survive, but to be admired. We dress, speak, and even post on social media not only to express ourselves, but to prove to others that we are doing well, successful, or worthy of attention. Deep down, many of us believe that only when others approve of us do we have value, that only then will we not be left behind. But this belief becomes a trap. Comparison culture forces us to constantly measure ourselves against others, their achievements, their carefully curated images, their fleeting moments of spotlight. A polished photo, a successful post, or a high number of likes and shares quietly turns into the ruler by which we measure our worth. The more we crave approval, the less we are able to hear our own voice. Buddhism calls this attachment. We cling to the image of ourselves reflected in other people's eyes. We cling to praise, to recognition, to attention, and we suffer when those things are withdrawn. It is like a thirsty person drinking salt water. The more they drink, the thirstier they become. In the same way, the more we chase approval, the emptier we feel inside. This craving isn't wrong in itself. It springs from the natural human longing for connection and love. But when we fail to recognize the impermanence of opinions and judgments, we end up chasing shadows. People may love us today, criticize us tomorrow, and ignore us the next day. If our sense of worth is entirely dependent on those shifting tides, our lives will always rise and fall with every nod or frown from others. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, if no one were watching, if no one could judge me, how would I live? What would I choose? The question may feel unsettling, even empty, because we've grown so used to letting others define us. But it is also the doorway to freedom. The Buddha taught that happiness does not come from universal approval. It comes from self-acceptance. When we can sit with the fear of rejection, acknowledge it, smile at it, and stop letting it control us, we begin to taste freedom. When we realize that we are already whole, already enough, then external approval becomes like a passing breeze. It comes and goes, but no longer binds us. True freedom doesn't mean cutting ourselves off from others. It means no longer being enslaved by their opinions. From that space, we can love, give, and connect with authenticity instead of fear. And here lies the paradox. When we stop desperately seeking approval, we often become more respected and more deeply valued, because people can sense when someone is living in truth. The world doesn't need us to be flawless in everyone's eyes. It needs us to be real, to show up with sincerity, even when imperfect. And in that realness, we find not only liberation for ourselves, but also inspiration for others to let go of their own chains of attachment. The trap of people-pleasing. Most of us have felt it at some point. The worry about what others might think, the fear of letting someone down, or the uneasy yes we give even when our heart quietly whispers, no. From small things like agreeing to plans when we're exhausted, to bigger choices like career paths or relationships, too often our lives are shaped not by what we truly want, but by what others expect. At first, people-pleasing seems like kindness. We believe that if we are agreeable, selfless, and accommodating, others will be happier, will love us more, and our relationships will thrive. But the truth is harsh. The more we try to please everyone, the more we lose ourselves. Because it's impossible to satisfy everyone. Each person carries different wants, different visions of who you should be. One person expects strength, another longs for softness. One wants you to take risks, another wants you to play it safe. If you live only to win their approval, you become like a boat tossed by waves, drifting with no anchor, no compass, no sense of direction. And here is the paradox. In the end, no one is truly happy. Not them, not you. Others may enjoy your compliance for a while, but it will never be enough. Human desires are endless. Meanwhile, you grow tired, drained, and hollow. Every time you betray your inner truth to gain approval, you walk further away from yourself. This is the vicious cycle of people-pleasing. The harder you try, the more trapped you become. The more approval you seek, the more expectations others place on you. And as those expectations grow heavier, so does your fear, keeping you stuck in the cycle. Even worse, being endlessly agreeable doesn't make people respect you more. Deep down, humans value authenticity far more than perfection. When you constantly say yes, constantly bend, constantly sacrifice, you start to fade into the background. People may enjoy your presence, but not because they truly see you, only because you don't challenge them. And one day, they may stop listening altogether, because you've never shown them the real you. Think about it. If you spend your whole life living to please others, who will live for you? If you're only a mirror reflecting everyone else's desires, where is your own face, your own light? Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is attachment, and in this case, attachment to being liked, to being accepted by everyone. But life is impermanent. Today's praise can become tomorrow's criticism, and the next day's indifference. Clinging to approval is like holding onto sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Breaking free from the trap of people-pleasing does not mean becoming selfish or cold. It means reclaiming your authenticity. When you dare to say no, you honor your boundaries. When you choose to live in alignment with your own values, you show the world a genuine human being. Imperfect but real. And only then can you offer others a love that is healthy, not born of fear, but of freedom. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped trying to please everyone and simply lived as myself? At first, you might lose some connections, but in truth, those were relationships built on pretense. When you live honestly, the right people, the ones who resonate with your truth, will stay, and those bonds will be deeper, stronger, more nourishing than any born from constant sacrifice. Life is far too short to keep running in circles, trapped by others' expectations. It's time to step out of the cage of people-pleasing and remember this. You don't need everyone's approval to be whole. You only need to be yourself, authentic, sincere, and free. Buddhist wisdom on authentic freedom. The Buddha once said, "Be a lamp unto yourself." These words are not just a call to independence. They are an invitation to discover the deepest source of freedom that cannot be shaken by the opinions, judgments, or expectations of others. So much of our suffering comes from living under the gaze of the world. We fear being criticized. We crave to be praised. We want to be seen as successful, attractive, kind, or important. And yet, no matter how much effort we put into polishing the image we present to others, there will always be someone who disapproves, someone who misunderstands, someone who doesn't see us the way we wish to be seen. The truth is, we can never fully control how the world perceives us. If our sense of worth depends on that shifting perception, then we will always remain enslaved, chained to the endless cycle of seeking approval and avoiding rejection. This is not freedom. This is bondage. Buddhist wisdom shows us a different path. Freedom is not found in changing other people's minds, but in releasing our own attachment to their opinions. When we recognize that praise and blame are just passing winds, sometimes blowing in our favor, sometimes against us, we begin to understand that neither defines our true self. Think about this. A person can praise you today and criticize you tomorrow. Their words reflect more about the state of their own mind than the reality of who you are. When you realize this, the grip of fear and craving loosens. You no longer have to perform, to pretend, or to carry the heavy burden of pleasing everyone around you. Authentic freedom arises when we live with awareness, when we return again and again to the present moment, anchoring ourselves in clarity instead of clinging to the shifting opinions of others. The Buddha taught that happiness is not the result of external approval, but the fruit of inner awakening. It is born when we recognize our own inherent worth, independent of the world's praise or blame. Imagine a life where your heart is not tossed around by the judgments of others. Imagine being able to hear criticism without collapsing, and to receive praise without becoming addicted to it. This is not indifference. It is equanimity. It is the ability to remain grounded, balanced, and free, no matter what winds of opinion blow your way. When you practice this kind of freedom, something beautiful happens. Your relationships become more genuine. You no longer approach others with the hidden agenda of winning approval. Instead, you meet them with authenticity, with presence, with compassion. And paradoxically, this makes connection deeper and more real. The Buddha's wisdom points us inward. Be a lamp unto yourself. Trust the clarity of your own awareness. Trust the truth that arises from stillness, not from the shifting shadows of public opinion. When you live from this place, happiness is no longer fragile, dependent, or conditional. It shines from within, steady and unshakable. True freedom is not about withdrawing from the world or ignoring others. It is about engaging with life fully, but without clinging, without letting your identity rise and fall on the tides of praise and blame. It is about being awake, authentic, and at peace in your own skin. So let us ask ourselves, where are we still imprisoned by the opinions of others? Where are we still searching for approval outside of ourselves? And what would it mean to live with the courage to let go? To step into the freedom of authenticity, the freedom that Buddhism calls awakening. This is the invitation of the Dharma, to discover that the deepest happiness, the most unshakable peace, is not something others can give or take away. It is already within us, waiting to be seen. Steps to break free. So many of us live our lives under the silent weight of needing to be accepted. We compromise our truth, we suppress our feelings, and we shape ourselves according to what we think others expect. And yet, in the quiet of our hearts, we know this is not freedom. It's a cage. Breaking free from this cycle doesn't happen overnight. It is a journey, a practice, a slow but steady returning to the truth of who we are. In Buddhist wisdom, this process begins not with fighting or forcing, but with awareness, mindfulness, compassion, and courage. Let us walk through these steps together. 1. Awareness. Freedom always begins with awareness. You cannot let go of a chain if you don't see it. Often, we act in ways that seem natural, agreeing, pleasing, overextending ourselves, without realizing that underneath it all is a desperate desire to be liked, to be approved of. The first step is to pause and ask, why am I doing this? Am I acting from authenticity or from fear of rejection? This simple question is powerful. It shines a light on hidden patterns that have quietly dictated our lives. Awareness is not about judgment. It is about seeing clearly. When you realize you're about to say yes, not because you want to, but because you're afraid of disappointing someone, you have already taken the first step toward freedom. 2. Mindfulness. Once awareness arises, the next step is mindfulness, staying present with the feelings that drive our need for approval. Often, when we sense disapproval or the possibility of rejection, fear rushes in. Our chest tightens, our mind races, and we instinctively want to react, either by pleasing or by withdrawing. Mindfulness asks us to pause, to breathe, to notice the fear without immediately obeying it. The Buddha taught that when we sit with our feelings instead of reacting to them, they lose their power. A wave of fear comes, it rises, it peaks, and if we watch carefully, it also falls away. What remains is clarity. Through mindfulness, we learn that we don't have to be controlled by the storm inside us. We can witness it with calm presence, and in that stillness, we can choose differently, not from fear, but from wisdom. 3. Self-compassion. This is where many of us stumble. Even when we are aware, even when we are mindful, there is still that inner voice whispering, "You are not enough. You must earn love. You must prove your worth." Buddhist wisdom reminds us that compassion begins at home, with ourselves. To be free from the approval trap, we must first accept ourselves, even when others don't. Self-compassion means saying, I am worthy, even when I am not perfect. I am lovable, even when I make mistakes. I do not need everyone's agreement to know my value. When you treat yourself with kindness instead of harsh judgment, the grip of external approval begins to loosen. You stop outsourcing your worth to others. Instead, you cultivate a deep sense of inner stability, a home within yourself that no amount of criticism can take away. 4. Courage. Finally, breaking free requires courage. The courage to act in alignment with your truth, even when it means disappointing others. Saying no is often terrifying. It threatens our image as the kind one, the helpful one, the one who always sacrifices. But what is the cost of always saying yes? Resentment, exhaustion, a life lived for others, but not for yourself. Courage is not about being fearless. It is about acting with integrity, even in the presence of fear. Each time you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what truly matters. And something magical happens. When you stop betraying yourself to win acceptance, you begin to attract relationships that are genuine. People respect your boundaries. They trust your authenticity. They know that when you say yes, it is because you mean it, not because you are afraid to say no. Living the steps together: awareness, mindfulness, self-compassion, and courage. These are not abstract teachings. They are living practices. Each moment offers an opportunity to embody them. When you notice yourself about to act from fear, pause. When anxiety about others' opinions rises, breathe. When self-criticism whispers, offer yourself kindness. When the choice arises between betraying yourself or being honest, choose courage. Bit by bit, these steps reshape your life. You begin to stand taller, breathe deeper, and live more authentically. The constant pressure to perform for others loosens its grip. In its place, a quiet strength grows. The strength of knowing who you are and living in alignment with that truth. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom. Freedom does not come from controlling the world or pleasing everyone. It comes from liberating your own heart, from fear, from craving, from the endless chase for approval. So I invite you to reflect. Which of these steps speaks most deeply to where you are right now? Is it awareness, seeing your patterns more clearly? Is it mindfulness, pausing before reacting? Is it self-compassion, softening the harshness you turn against yourself? Or is it courage, finally daring to live in your truth? Wherever you are on this path, know that each small step is a victory. Each act of awareness, each mindful breath, each moment of compassion, each courageous no. All of these are bricks laid on the path of authentic freedom. And that path, step by step, leads you home, to a life lived not in fear of rejection, but in the joy of being fully, unapologetically yourself. The beauty of not pleasing everyone. There is a quiet, almost hidden kind of beauty that unfolds the moment we stop trying to please everyone. For much of our lives, we've been conditioned to believe that love must be earned, that acceptance is something we achieve by being agreeable, polite, and endlessly accommodating. From childhood, we were taught, be good and people will love you. Be obedient and people will approve of you. Without even realizing it, we begin to measure our worth through the eyes of others, through their smiles, their praise, their approval. But here's the truth. That way of living is not freedom. It is a kind of prison, built not with walls and bars, but with expectations, comparisons, and silent fears. When we finally loosen our grip on this need to please, something extraordinary happens. We suddenly find ourselves with energy. Real, vibrant, life-giving energy that was once wasted on keeping up appearances. Think about how much of our time is spent performing, smiling when we don't feel like it, saying yes when every fiber of our being wants to say no, bending ourselves into shapes just to be seen as nice or good. It's exhausting. But when you begin to let that go, you create space. Space to breathe, space to be honest, space to live in alignment with your own truth instead of someone else's expectations. And the irony is this: when you stop pretending, your relationships actually become deeper. Why? Because they're no longer built on the fragile foundation of performance. They are built on sincerity. When you show up as you are, with both your yes and your no, with both your strengths and your flaws, you allow others to meet you in a place of honesty. Not everyone will stay. Some people will leave. And that's okay. Those who remain, those who continue to walk beside you when you are your most authentic self, those are the relationships that truly matter. They are not drawn to you because of the role you play or the mask you wear, but because of the person you really are. That is intimacy. That is trust. From a Buddhist perspective, this shift is profound. The need to please others is really just another form of attachment. Attachment to an image, to praise, to the illusion of control over how others see us. But praise fades, and criticism fades too. Neither is permanent. What matters is not whether the world applauds you or disapproves of you, but whether your mind remains steady in the face of both. When you let go of this attachment, you discover a kind of inner freedom that cannot be taken away. A happiness that is not built on shifting sands, but rooted deeply in presence, in awareness, in authenticity. Now, some people might argue that not trying to please everyone sounds selfish, but in reality, the opposite is true. When you stop performing, you stop expecting others to perform for you. When you no longer fake it, you no longer need others to fake it either. Your honesty creates space for theirs. Your authenticity becomes an invitation for them to be authentic too. And what arises between you is no longer manipulation or obligation. It is compassion, understanding, and genuine connection. Imagine waking up tomorrow without the constant question, am I good enough for them? Do they approve of me? Will they still like me if I disappoint them? Instead, imagine asking, am I living in alignment with my heart? Am I walking a path that brings peace to my spirit? That single shift in perspective can change the entire quality of your life. Of course, this path isn't easy. You will be misunderstood. You will be criticized. You will face rejection. But here's the paradox. Every moment of rejection becomes a teacher. Every misunderstanding becomes a mirror. Every criticism becomes an opportunity to strengthen the roots of your freedom. If you can only feel stable when praised, then you are still a slave to the voices outside you. But if you can remain calm in both praise and blame, then you have found a freedom that no one can give you, and no one can take away. The Buddha once said, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path." These words remind us that the path of freedom is always personal. No one else can walk it for you, and no amount of approval will carry you there. At some point, you must step onto that road yourself, even if it means leaving behind the comfort of being liked by everyone. And yes, at first, that road feels lonely. But soon, you discover something far greater than approval: the friendship of your own heart. You learn to stand at ease in your own presence. You learn to trust your own voice. And in that trust, you discover peace. The beauty of not pleasing everyone is not about rebellion or defiance. It is about returning home, to the simple truth of who you are. It is about listening to your heart instead of the noise around you. It is about finding balance between compassion and wisdom, between kindness toward others and authenticity toward yourself. And in that return, you realize something breathtaking. You no longer need happiness to come from someone else's smile. You no longer depend on the fragile highs of being praised. You find happiness right here, in your breath, in your steps, in the quiet joy of being fully, unapologetically yourself. That is the beauty. That is the freedom. And that is a happiness that no criticism can touch, and no praise can inflate. It simply is. The gift of freedom. In the end, the truth is simple yet powerful. You don't need everyone's approval to live a full and meaningful life. You don't need to chase applause, validation, or endless likes on a screen. What you truly need is your own presence, your willingness to be here, now, living honestly, standing in your truth. Think about it. How many times have you silenced yourself, compromised your values, or worn a mask just to avoid judgment? And yet, even when you do everything right to please others, it's never enough. There will always be someone who disagrees, who criticizes, who doesn't see your worth. But here is the liberating secret. Their opinion does not define you. The only thing that defines you is the way you show up for yourself, with honesty, compassion, and courage. Freedom is not about escaping responsibilities or walking away from people. It's about dropping the chains of constant approval seeking. When you no longer live as a prisoner of other people's opinions, you begin to breathe differently. Your steps feel lighter. Your heart begins to open in ways it never could when it was weighed down by fear. And the beauty is this: when you stop trying to please everyone, your relationships become more real. Instead of shallow exchanges built on performance, you create connections built on authenticity. People may not always agree with you, but the ones who stay, the ones who truly see you, will love you for who you are, not for the role you play. So here's my invitation for you. Each day, choose one small action to live more authentically. Maybe it's saying no when you're tempted to say yes out of fear. Maybe it's speaking your truth, even if your voice shakes. Maybe it's simply giving yourself permission to rest, to breathe, to just be. These small acts are seeds of freedom. Over time, they grow into unshakable confidence, quiet joy, and a life rooted in truth. Remember, the greatest freedom is not found in other people's acceptance. It is found in the courage to be yourself. That courage is your birthright, and no one can take it from you unless you hand it away. If this reflection touched you, don't just listen and move on. Take a moment right now, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what is one way I can live more authentically today? I'd love to hear your answer. Share it in the comments below, not just for me, but because your words may inspire someone else who is also searching for the courage to be real. And before you go, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. This space is here for seekers like you, those who long for wisdom, freedom, and a life lived with truth. By subscribing, you're not just supporting this channel, you're committing to your own journey of inner freedom and mindful living. So, I'll leave you with this final reminder. The greatest freedom is the courage to be yourself. Carry this truth with you, live it, share it, and watch how your life begins to transform.